My brother said I was just a waitress who serves coffee. At the party, he doesn't know what I own. The first thing you need to know about my brother Bruno is that he divides humanity into two categories, those who give orders and those who take them. It's a worldview that becomes particularly rigid when women are involved. Another promotion wasted on a skirt, he announced at our mother's 65th birthday dinner, stabbing his prime rib as if punishing it for feminist tendencies. Caroline from accounting, zero financial acumen, but great at bringing Dean his coffee with that extra splash of cream. My mother sighed into her wine glass. Dad pretended to have a sudden fascination with a bread roll. I simply raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly do you take your coffee, Bruno?" I asked. "Black, 1 sugar," he replied absently, not catching my drift. "Fascinating, and who brings it to you?" He looked up, irritated by the interruption to his monologue. "Lisa, the department assistant." "Why?" "Just wondering if your coffee delivery indicates a similar lack of acumen on your part." Bruno's face darkened. "That's different. I'm a VP of strategic acquisitions. I generate millions in revenue. Lisa is paid to do administrative tasks." "I see. So it's the hierarchical context of coffee delivery that determines intelligence. How scientific." "You wouldn't understand, Alicia," he said, his voice dripping with the particular condescension he reserved for me. "Still waiting tables at— where is it this month? The Plaza." "Still waiting tables," I confirmed with a deliberate smile. "Going on 3 years now." Bruno shook his head, exchanging a knowing look with our father. "You could have done something with your life. That business degree from NYU, and you're serving overpriced omelets to tourists." I took a slow sip of water, letting the familiar judgment wash over me. If only he knew. "My name is Alicia Wright. I'm 36 years old, and for the past 3 years, my family has believed I'm nothing more than a career waitress at an upscale hotel restaurant. What they don't know, what Bruno especially doesn't know, is that I'm actually the CEO and principal owner of Wright Hospitality Group, a $340 million company that, among other properties, owns the plaza where I supposedly just work, and in exactly 6 weeks. At Bruno's corporate promotion party, which he's insisted on holding at my workplace to, as he put it, show support for your little job, he's going to learn exactly what happens when you underestimate the women who bring you coffee. Grandfather Wright had 2 grandchildren, Bruno and me, from our earliest years. The differences in how we were treated were subtle but unmistakable. Bruno got the toy toolbox. I got the toy kitchen. Bruno was enrolled in business summer camps. I was sent to ballet lessons. Bruno's assertiveness was leadership potential. My assertiveness was being difficult. Our parents weren't monsters, or even particularly traditional. They simply absorbed and reflected the biases of their generation, their social circle, and the world at large. They loved us both, but they expected different things from us, invested differently in us, and celebrated different achievements. The exception was my grandfather, a self-made millionaire who'd built a modest regional hotel chain from scratch after starting as a dishwasher. He treated me exactly like he treated Bruno, with high expectations, genuine interest in our ideas, and a certain gleeful disregard for social norms. While our parents enrolled Bruno in prestigious summer programs and me in deportment classes, grandfather would kidnap us both for what he called real education. We'd spend weekends learning how to negotiate with suppliers, calculate profit margins, and identify operational inefficiencies in his hotels. "The money's in the margins, Alicia," he'd tell me while we conducted unofficial time and motion studies of the housekeeping staff. "Anyone can see big opportunities. True business genius is spotting the pennies that become millions." When grandfather died my senior year of college, I was devastated. Bruno was already at Wharton getting his MBA, positioned for a fast-track corporate career. I was finishing my business degree at NYU, directionless and grieving. The reading of the will changed everything. Grandfather had split his hotel chain between us. Bruno received the physical properties and a substantial cash inheritance. I received the management company that operated the hotels, along with an equal cash portion, within 6 months. Bruno had sold his hotels to a major chain for an impressive profit and used the proceeds to secure a junior executive position at Rhodes Financial. a prestigious firm where connections and capital mattered more than competence. I took a different approach. I spent a year learning every aspect of the hospitality business from the ground up. I worked as a housekeeper, a front desk clerk, a maintenance assistant, and yes, a waitress. I studied the operations of the world's best hotels. I developed relationships with chefs, designers, and hospitality tech innovators. Then I leveraged the management company's steady income and my inheritance to begin acquiring distressed hotel properties during the post-recession slump. Each acquisition was made through separate LLCs, with deliberately opaque ownership structures, not for any nefarious purpose, but because I'd learned from grandfather that keeping your business cards close to the chest created strategic advantages. The Plaza was my crown jewel, an acquisition that had made business headlines, attributed to Wright Hospitality Group, a rising player in luxury properties. The articles mentioned the CEO only as A. Wright, with no photographs. I had deliberately maintained a low public profile, again following my grandfather's philosophy. Be the wizard behind the curtain, let everyone else play on the stage. My family, consumed with Bruno's meteoric corporate rise, barely noticed my career path. They saw only the surface. Alicia works at the Plaza as a waitress. How sad, such wasted potential. I didn't correct them. At first, it was simply easier to let them believe what they wanted while I focused on building my business. Later, as Bruno's condescension toward my supposed career choice intensified, it became a sort of private experiment. How long could I run a multi-million-dollar company while my own brother believed I spent my days refilling water glasses? The answer, apparently, was 3 years and counting. Right up until Bruno's big promotion celebration, which would also become his biggest humiliation. The Morrison account was practically in the toilet before I stepped in, Bruno announced, holding court at Sunday dinner. Their portfolio was a disaster. I restructured everything and saved them millions. That's wonderful, dear, Mom said, passing the potatoes. Isn't that wonderful? Alicia, I nodded, fighting a smile. I happened to know exactly what had happened with the Morrison account because Timothy Morrison played golf with one of my hotel investors. According to Timothy, Bruno had indeed restructured their portfolio directly into a massive loss that the company was still trying to recover from. How's the waitressing? Bruno asked with exaggerated interest. Set any new records for napkin folding? It pays the bills, I replied mildly. How's Sophia? Bruno's expression soured at the mention of his third ex-wife. We're finalizing the settlement next week. Another gold digger who couldn't appreciate a good man, Dad said sympathetically. I bit my tongue. Having met Sophia several times, I knew she was a brilliant intellectual property attorney who had finally grown tired of Bruno's endless philandering and casual misogyny. Women, Bruno sighed dramatically. They either want your money or your job, sometimes both. Some of us just want basic human respect, I muttered. What was that? Bruno asked sharply. I said some of us make spectacular crème brûlée, I covered smoothly. The dessert chef has been teaching me techniques. Bruno relaxed, mollified by this appropriately feminine pursuit. Well, at least you're learning something useful. Speaking of the Plaza, I've reserved the grand ballroom for my promotion celebration, 6 weeks from Saturday. The grand ballroom, I repeated, suddenly alert. That was a $50,000 rental minimum. Rhodes is covering it, he said dismissively. They're announcing my appointment to the executive leadership team. I'll be the youngest senior VP in company history. Congratulations, I said sincerely, whatever his flaws. Bruno had always worked hard. I made sure to include a staff gratuity in the contract, he added with what he clearly thought was magnanimity. So, your little waitress friends will be properly motivated to give good service. I smiled tightly. How thoughtful. I told Henderson he's the CEO that my sister works there. He thought it was charming, said he'd make a point of saying hello to you. Ice slid down my spine. Charles Henderson was one of the few people in New York who might recognize me from private business functions. This could complicate things. That's not necessary, I said quickly. I'd rather keep a low profile, professional boundaries and all that. Bruno laughed. Afraid the big boss will see you in your little uniform. Don't worry, I'm sure he tips well. And there it was, the casual belittling that characterized most of our interactions. The constant reminder that he was a master of the universe while I was just a server. A position he viewed with thinly veiled contempt despite his claims of respecting all types of work. I'm looking forward to the party, I said, decision suddenly crystallizing in my mind. In fact, I think it might be the highlight of my career. The 6 weeks leading up to Bruno's celebration were a delicate balancing act. First, I needed to ensure Charles Henderson wouldn't inadvertently reveal my identity before I was ready. A discreet call, CEO to CEO, resolved that issue. Charles, I understand you're hosting an event for one of your executives at my property. Alicia, yes. For Bruno, right. Talented young man. He mentioned his sister works there, quite a coincidence. About that, I've been maintaining a certain professional separation between my family life and business role. Bruno isn't aware that I own the plaza. A pause. He doesn't know you're his boss's landlord. It's complicated, I admitted. Family dynamics. Charles chuckled. Say no more. We all have them. I'll be the soul of discretion at the event. I appreciate it. And Charles, the Right Hospitality Group, would be pleased to offer a 30% discount on the ballroom rental as a professional courtesy. Generous as always, Alicia. Perhaps we can discuss that office tower acquisition when I see you. The second challenge was preparing the plaza staff for what would unfold. As CEO, I rarely involved myself in day-to-day operations of individual properties, but I did conduct periodic working visits to stay connected to the guest experience. The staff were accustomed to seeing me in a server's uniform, pitching in where needed while observing operations. For Bruno's event, I convened a special meeting with the management team and key staff who would be working that night. I need absolute confidentiality, I explained after outlining my plan. Not a whisper, not a hint. Marcos, the food and beverage director who had known me since I'd purchased the property, grinned broadly. Your brother has been here 6 times for meetings. He's a 15% tipper who snaps his fingers at servers and has sent back perfectly prepared steaks twice. And calls me sweetheart, added Elena, our best bartender. I'm in. The final preparation was personal. I commissioned a tailored evening suit in deep blue that could pass for a higher-end server's uniform from a distance, but revealed itself as bespoke luxury up close. I arranged for my assistant to bring the official company documentation I might need. I even practiced what I would say, trying to find the balance between standing up for myself and outright humiliation of my brother, because that was the line I was determined not to cross. This wasn't about destroying Bruno. It was about correcting a persistent imbalance, about demanding the respect I'd earned not through inheritance, but through business acumen and hard work. 6 weeks passed quickly, and suddenly it was the evening of Bruno's celebration. I arrived early, changed into my blue suit, and helped with final preparations while monitoring the event setup from a staff perspective. Bruno arrived for a pre-event inspection, striding through the ballroom like an emperor surveying his domain. He spotted me adjusting a place setting and beckoned imperiously. Alicia, there you are. I need to make sure everything's perfect tonight. Henderson and the entire executive team will be here. Everything is in order, I assured him. He glanced around critically. The flowers look a bit sparse. Can't you add more? The arrangements were designed according to the contract specifications, I explained. Additional flowers would incur extra costs. Bruno waved dismissively. Just add them. Rhodes is covering everything. I nodded, making a mental note. Will Sophia be attending? I asked, knowing perfectly well she wouldn't be. His expression darkened. No, I'm bringing Melanie from client relations. The new assistant, how professional of you. Don't start, he warned. Not everyone can afford to be so choosy about advancement opportunities. Some of us have actual careers to manage. I bit back a retort as Bruno's phone rang. He checked the screen and immediately adopted his important business posture. Right here, he announced, walking away without another word to me. I exchanged looks with Marcos, who had witnessed the interaction. Tonight's going to be interesting, he murmured. Just wait, I promised. By 8 o'clock. The grand ballroom was filled with Rhodes financial executives, their partners, and select clients. The champagne flowed, the hors d'oeuvres circulated, and Bruno held court near the main table, one arm around his much younger date, gesturing expansively with his free hand. I circulated throughout the room in my server's attire, occasionally carrying a tray of champagne, observing and waiting for the right moment. Charles Henderson caught my eye across the room and gave me a subtle nod of recognition, respecting our agreement to maintain my cover until I was ready. At precisely 8:30, Rhodes's CEO took the stage to announce Bruno's promotion. The room applauded as Bruno made his way to the microphone, straightening his tie and adopting an expression of practiced humility. "Thank you, everyone. This is truly an honor," he began. "As some of you know, I come from a family with a modest hospitality background. My grandfather ran a small hotel chain, but I've always aimed higher." I nearly snorted at this characterization of our grandfather's successful regional business as modest. "In fact," Bruno continued, apparently unable to resist the opportunity to highlight his superiority, "my sister actually works here at the plaza." He scanned the room and spotted me near the back. "There she is, Alicia. Wave to everyone." A spotlight swung in my direction as heads turned. I raised my hand in a small wave, acutely aware of the narrative Bruno was constructing. "Look how far I've risen while my sister serves drinks." "Alicia chose a different path," Bruno explained to the room with exaggerated generosity. "While I went to Wharton and entered the world of high finance, she decided to follow her passion for customer service." Titters of laughter rippled through the crowd as Bruno smiled magnanimously. "But we support all career choices in the right family, don't we, sis, no matter how modest?" The condescension was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. I caught Elena's eye at the bar. She gave me an encouraging nod. It was time. "Actually, Bruno," I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room, "I think congratulations are in order for both of us tonight." Bruno's smile faltered slightly. "Oh." I handed my tray to a nearby server and walked toward the stage, feeling every eye in the room follow me. "Yes, you on your promotion to Senior VP, and me on the Q3 performance of Wright Hospitality Group. Our portfolio showed a 12% increase in revenue year over year, including this property." Bruno's brow furrowed in confusion. "What are you talking about?" I climbed the steps to join him on stage. Up close, I could see the exact moment he noticed my outfit wasn't a standard server's uniform, but an expensively tailored suit. "Wright Hospitality Group," I repeated. "My company, the one I built from the management firm grandfather left me." I turned to address the crowd. "The one that owns the Plaza Hotel and 12 other luxury properties across the United States and Europe." A murmur swept through the room as Bruno's face cycled rapidly through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror. "That's impossible," he stammered. "You're a waitress here." "I work here occasionally," I corrected. "As CEO, I believe in understanding every aspect of my business operations, something grandfather taught us both, though perhaps only one of us was listening." Charles Henderson stepped forward from the crowd, unable to contain himself any longer. "Alicia's being modest. Wright Hospitality Group is one of the most innovative management companies in the industry. We're actually tenants in one of her buildings on Park Avenue." Bruno's mouth opened and closed several times, reminding me of a goldfish abruptly finding itself in air. You own the plaza," he finally managed. "And the building your Rhodes financial office is in," I added. "That was an acquisition last year. Your company signed a very favorable lease renewal. Actually, you're welcome." The room had gone completely silent, all pretense of casual party chatter abandoned, as the assembled financial elite witnessed Bruno's carefully constructed narrative implode in real time. "Why didn't you tell me?" he demanded, his voice rising with indignation. I raised an eyebrow. "Would you have believed me, or would you have explained, as you've done so many times, that women don't understand real business, that serving customers is beneath a person of real ambition, that my degree was wasted because I didn't use it to climb a corporate ladder identical to yours?" Bruno's date was staring at him with new eyes, clearly recalculating her evening's investment potential. "I never said," he began. "Last Thanksgiving," I interrupted, "you told me that waitressing was a job for people without the intelligence for real business. The Christmas before that, you explained that women in hospitality peak at glorified party planning, and just 6 weeks ago, you referred to Caroline from accounting as having zero financial acumen because she brings your boss coffee. My voice remained calm, but I could feel 3 years of accumulated condescension fueling each word. You divided the world into people who give orders and people who take them. Bruno, you just never imagined you might be taking orders in a building I own. Rhodes's CEO cleared his throat awkwardly. Perhaps we should continue with the celebration. Bruno, congratulations again on your promotion. Bruno's eyes darted between his boss and me, his carefully constructed world visibly rearranging itself behind his eyes. His date had already drifted strategically toward a more senior executive. Of course, Bruno said, his training in corporate smoothness asserting itself. And congratulations to my sister as well. What a surprise. He extended his hand for a shake. Professional mask now firmly in place despite the public revelation. I took his hand, but held it rather than shaking. Grandfather used to say success isn't about who's in charge, it's about who creates value. Every person in a business creates value. From the CEO to the dishwasher he would know, having been both. I released his hand and addressed the room. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. The Grand Ballroom at the Plaza is one of New York's most beautiful venues, staffed by some of the finest hospitality professionals in the world, all of whom create tremendous value every day through their intelligence, dedication, and skill. The room burst into applause partly from genuine appreciation, partly from the exquisite awkwardness of the situation. As I stepped away from the microphone, Charles Henderson approached with a grin. That was quite a moment. Alicia, remind me never to underestimate you. It wasn't personal, I assured him, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. Just a long overdue correction of perspective. Well, your brother seems to be processing quite a lot of new information right now, Charles observed, glancing at Bruno, who stood rigid by the stage, mechanical smile frozen in place. I followed his gaze and felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. For all his flaws, Bruno was still my brother, and publicly shifting his understanding of our respective places in the world couldn't have been comfortable. Excuse me, I said to Charles, I think I need a word with my brother. I found Bruno by the bar, downing a scotch with grim determination. He looked up as I approached, eyes wary. Come to gloat some more, he asked. No, I replied honestly. I came to see if you're okay. He laughed bitterly. Oh, I'm fantastic. Just discovered my waitress sister owns half of Manhattan while I've been lecturing her about career ambition. Stellar evening. I never planned to embarrass you tonight, I said. But after 3 years of listening to you dismiss an entire industry my industry as beneath you, something had to give. Bruno was quiet for a moment, swirling his drink. Why did you let me believe it for so long? Why pretend to be just a server? I never pretended. I occasionally work service shifts to understand my business better. You just assumed that was all I did because it fit your worldview. And you never corrected me, he pointed out. Would you have believed me without proof, or would you have decided I was exaggerating my role? His silence was answer enough. Besides, I continued more gently. At first, it was just easier not to explain. Then it became educational. Seeing how differently people treat you when they think you're just a waitress versus when they know you're a CEO taught me a lot about human nature. And I failed that test spectacularly, Bruno concluded, a hint of self-awareness breaking through. Let's say there's room for improvement, I allowed. He knocked back the rest of his scotch. So what now? You've made your point. Should I expect an eviction notice from my apartment too? Is that another one of your buildings? No, though there's a nice vacancy in the building next door if you're interested. Better doorman service. A reluctant smile tugged at his lips. You really built all this yourself. It wasn't just grandfather's money. I started with what he left us both, I acknowledged. But you sold your properties immediately. I leveraged mine, worked from the ground up to understand the business, and built something larger. Exactly what you would have respected if I'd been your brother instead of your sister. Bruno had the grace to look uncomfortable. I've been an ass, haven't I? World class, I agreed, but not irredeemably so. He sighed heavily. I don't suppose your company has any openings for a recently humbled financial executive. My current workplace is going to be unbearable after tonight. Wright Hospitality Group maintains a strict no-nepotism policy, I said primly, then relented. But I might know of some opportunities with our investment partners, if you're willing to start somewhere more modest. Like serving coffee, he suggested wryly. Everyone starts somewhere, I replied. Even CEOs occasionally carry trays. The aftermath of Bruno's promotion party rippled through our family like an earthquake. Our parents were stunned into an unprecedented silence when they learned the truth, followed by a confused pride that their supposedly underachieving daughter had built a business empire right under their noses. But why didn't you tell us? Mom kept asking, genuinely perplexed. Because you never asked, I replied simply. You asked Bruno about acquisitions and portfolio growth. You asked me if I was dating any nice doctors or lawyers from the hotel. Bruno, to his credit, embraced his recalibrated understanding of our respective positions with surprising grace. After the initial shock wore off, he approached his corporate downfall with something resembling humility, a novel experience for him. I've been thinking about what you said, he told me over coffee a week later, about creating value versus giving orders. Grandfather's wisdom, not mine, I reminded him. Still, I built my entire career on climbing hierarchies rather than building something meaningful, just collecting bigger titles and fancier business cards. You've always been smart and driven, I said honestly. Those qualities work anywhere if they're channeled properly. Bruno ended up accepting a position with one of my investment partners, a mid-level role with less prestige than his Rhodes position, but with more direct impact on actual business operations. More importantly, he found himself reporting to a female CEO who had no patience for his previously casual sexism. Barbara rejected my proposal yesterday, he complained during a family dinner 3 months later. Said it was all presentation and no substance. Was she right? I asked. He sighed. Probably. I'm used to dazzling people with confidence and letting someone else handle the details. That doesn't work with Barbara, I noted. She's substance first, style second. Unlike some people I could name, he grumbled, but without real heat. Our relationship would never be uncomplicated. Too many years of established patterns and assumptions stood between us and easy siblinghood. But a new respect had entered our interactions, not just his respect for me, but my respect for his willingness to reconsider deeply held beliefs when presented with irrefutable evidence of their flaws. As for me, stepping out of the shadows changed my business in unexpected ways, no longer operating behind the curtain of anonymity. I became something of a reluctant role model for women in hospitality management. Speaking engagements and industry leadership positions followed, each one an opportunity to advocate for the oft-dismissed workers who make hospitality function. 6 months after the incident, as Bruno now refers to his promotion party, I received a handwritten note from him that simply said, "Thank you for not firing the barista who brings me coffee. She's starting business classes next semester, and I've been helping with her course selection. I think grandfather would approve." I smiled and pinned the note to my office bulletin board, next to a framed napkin bearing my grandfather's scrawled wisdom. Remember, Alicia, the real power isn't in having your name on the building, it's in knowing every corner of it, from basement to penthouse, and respecting every person who makes it work. 3 years of serving coffee in my own 5-star hotel had taught me exactly that. And watching my brother learn the same lesson, however painfully, was worth every moment of being underestimated. My name is Alicia Wright. I'm the CEO of a $340 million hospitality company that owns some of the most prestigious properties in the world. I occasionally still work service shifts in my hotels. And if you ever snap your fingers at my staff or call them sweetheart, you might just find yourself accidentally seated next to the kitchen doors. Some lessons in respect need to be taught more directly than others. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come wrapped in unexpected moments of truth. For Bruno, that lesson arrived in the spotlight of his own celebration, when his waitress sister revealed herself as the business mogul who owned the very floor beneath his feet. In the months since that night, whispers of the right revelation have circulated through New York's business elite, a cautionary tale about underestimating women in service roles or assuming that success only looks one way. As for me, I still visit my properties regularly, occasionally donning an apron or carrying trays. Not as performance or pretense, but because grandfather was right, you can't truly lead what you don't understand from every angle. Bruno and I meet monthly for lunch, sometimes at the plaza, Sometimes at smaller establishments where he's learning to notice the expertise in every perfect coffee pour or thoughtfully arranged table setting. He's not perfect, but he's trying. That's all any of us can do. The world is full of Brunos, people who measure worth by titles and command rather than by value and contribution. My hope isn't that they all face public reckonings, but that they might learn sooner what my brother learned: late respect isn't a limited resource. And recognizing the dignity in all work only expands our own humanity.